Well, good evening, and welcome to the studio.
Yeah.
For your very special edition of The Underground. My goodness.
What did we just watch?
My goodness. We're going to try to figure that out.
Yeah.
As we dive in tonight, we have so many thoughts.
The best laid plans of mice and men, as they
Often
say,
go
right?
around.
We had a plan, and then we just watched what we watched,
saw what
and
some of you, if not many of you, saw as well.
yeah.
So we figured it'd be great to open
Yeah.
up tonight with some scripture. We always love encouraging our hearts. And so tonight we're just going to read real briefly of kind of a quick psalm, Psalm 29. I think it's pretty clear. We won't need to explain it, but may you be encouraged by the word of the Lord here. Ascribe to the Lord, O heavenly beings. Ascribe to the Lord glory and strength. Ascribe to the Lord the glory due his name. Worship the Lord in the splendor of holiness. The voice of the Lord is over the waters. The God of glory thunders. The Lord over many waters. The voice of the Lord is powerful. The voice of the Lord is full of majesty. The voice of the Lord breaks the cedars. The Lord breaks the cedars of Lebanon. He makes Lebanon to skip like a calf, and Syrian like a young wild ox. The voice of the Lord flashes forth flames of fire. The voice of the Lord shakes the wilderness. The Lord shakes the wilderness of Kadesh. The voice of the Lord makes the deer give birth and strips the forest bare. In his temple all cry, glory. The Lord sits enthroned over the flood. The Lord sits enthroned as king forever. May the Lord give strength to his people. May the Lord bless his people with peace. With that in mind,
Amen.
let's pray.
Let's do it.
Lord God, we thank you for this evening and the privilege we have tonight even to discuss, hopefully calm our thoughts based on what we witness. We remember that no matter who is voted in our country, no matter the politicians that run, no matter who is sitting on the Supreme Court, the Lord sits enthroned on high. You sit enthroned on high. May we be comforted by remembering that you're above everything. You're above every calamity. You're above every blessing. You're above every aspect of creation, and you're surely above us. So may we have peace. May we have peace knowing who our God is. May we have peace knowing what our God has called us to. So may we wrestle with that tonight, how we can respond as your children, how we can respond as those who fear you and yet trust you, as those who yield to you and who delight in you. Help us to be encouraging tonight. Give Jeff and I clarity in our thoughts as we share based on what we witnessed this evening. Would it be edifying? Would it be helpful for those who are partaking in this time tonight? We pray this all according to the grace found in your Son, Jesus, who has redeemed us from all of our darkness and from all of our sin into your glorious kingdom. All by his grace we pray. Amen.
Amen. I appreciate that. That is something we need to keep in mind as we watch that, is that God is in sovereign control. And he has a plan. He has decreed all things before the foundation of the world.
Yeah.
And that decree is unfolding, and nothing surprises him. And so there is peace in that.
Yeah. Amen.
Okay, so let's talk about. I have an opening phrase that I'd like to use.
Okay, let's hear it.
Because I know everybody is instantly going to want to say, "Who won this debate?" And my answer is, we all lost tonight.
We all lost a little bit tonight, didn't we?
We all lost. Yeah. That was hard to watch. Because remember, I'm older than you. I go back to the days of Reagan and Mondale, and back when there was respect. For one another, decorum, even a sense of unity, that even if we disagreed, we all loved America and we wanted the best for America. This was hard to watch.
Very
hard to watch.
I've shared with you so many times that pastors around the world think that we're incredible to watch. At least our political system, they're so fascinated. Partly because in our chambers, whether we're in the Senate or the House of Representatives or even political debate stages, at least things don't get violent.
Right, it's true.
In so many other countries,
right.
the mic stands would be
Right.
thrown and swung
Right.
and chairs and everything.
Right.
And so they think it's incredible that we have this freedom even in that. And yet at the same time, recently in the last several years, there's been such a fascination with the level of vitriol, the level of disrespect that has been very different than, like you just said, has been seen in the past. So it is difficult to watch, even as somebody who hasn't seen as many debates as you have, like live and grown up with those, even still seeing the language being used and name calling consistently, and the level of disrespect, even for the office, we struggled with that at times, right? Like, man, if the president doesn't act presidential, do you still respect? It's like, well, you do, because the nature of giving honor, is not dependent upon whether somebody deserves it or not, but God has called us to submit in our authority. So it doesn't mean that we want to extol any improper behavior, but there's still a level of respect, and not seeing that even still consistently is rough. So, I mean, so many thoughts off the top of my head. I don't even know which thread to start pulling.
Well, I think a lot of this has been brought on by our media and our social media, just just the pulling back from Christian values has hurt our country, obviously, but media and social media have ramped up the vitriol. There's no question about that. That's big. So, to me, this was just two really old guys in a street fight tonight. And it wasn't pretty. Just was not.
Like those memes where you see them with the water and they're fighting, throwing tennis balls at each other. Yeah, I
would say right off the bat a couple things. So what we thought we would do, guys, is we'll talk briefly about the personal aspect of tonight, and then go through the categories that Chris Wallace brought up. I mean, I think Biden was sharper than people expected him to be. He appeared to be well practiced. He seemed to have his facts straight. So you're going to hear the news media say he won. I don't think there's any doubt about that, because the bar was very low for him, and he appeared to practice well. Here's the thing I would say about, you may know this, but historically, incumbent presidents have come out of the gate poorly in debates, first debates. Obama, for example, was trounced by Romney in his first debate. And so what happens is presidents get very comfortable and they don't practice. I don't think Trump practiced at all for this. And it showed. And he has to realize, I think, that the rallies that he does it
doesn't count here.
Doesn't prepare him for this, because everybody at the rallies is just cheering him on. So, I thought he did a poor job. I really think the president did a poor job tonight in being presidential, being the calm one. I know he wanted to try to rattle Joe. He didn't, and he got himself pretty rattled, I think, in the process. Joe was very disrespectful. You and I winced a number of times. I wrote down twice he called the president a clown. He told him to shut up. He said something about yapping. He shushed him. He called him a fool. He called him the worst president in the United States, history of the United States. So very, very disrespectful, which was not fun to watch. But again, I'll let you. I'm sorry.
I mean, the fun thing about that one was like the whole idea of Birth of a Nation being shown, and he didn't reference that president.
Yeah,
And I'm not saying he should be referenced. I'm just saying, like, wow, that's
the worst.
Big
really?
To throw out there.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, so personal, right?
We're
talking about personal here. It was clear. I agree with you. President Trump did not handle himself calmly.
Right.
And really wanted his point to be pursued.
Yeah.
Now, I do get it. He feels like he's under attack, and I have numerous notes that I made here about Wallace actually not even abiding by his own debate rules.
Yeah.
So that's rough.
Yeah.
So on that sense, I'm like, yeah, that's rough. Like when you're already struggling to present yourself peaceful, and then the other person or the moderator doesn't give you a chance to speak. Ooh, that's rough. So he was in a rough spot. Biden was much more clear. I made that comment to you while we were watching him. Like, he actually doesn't look like he's on anything. And I don't mean that disrespectfully.
Right.
I mean that as an older person, to be clear, to be coherent. That's not something we've seen from him consistently in the videos that we've seen.
Correct.
So I think that's a fair comment.
He was just well prepared
to make. That being said, even still, his approach. Oh my goodness.
Yeah.
It was brutal.
Yeah.
Brutal, and not in a helpful way. I don't think it was a helpful way. I've made the comment to you many times. I'm registered independent on purpose.
Right.
That's my personal conviction. I'd like to be politically homeless in that.
Right.
But watching that, if I was completely undecided and I had zero leaning one way or the other, tonight wouldn't leave me really much of anywhere other than to say, wow, this is ugly.
This is bad.
This is really ugly.
Yeah.
This is rough.
Yeah.
So when I consider now, where do we go from here? There's a lot of questions.
Yeah.
A lot of questions moving forward. So I would say the third person in the debate, that had a big impact tonight.
Yeah.
That'd be my last little
You
part
know what?
about the
I
people.
did not like. I thought we were going to like the format. I did not like it. It was way too unstructured, and Chris Wallace came off as almost a third debater, and I didn't think he was unbiased. It seemed to be he was trying to help Biden along. I thought he used some words that were less than helpful as well. So he seemed to be hostile. It was 3 hostile guys, and I know he had a hard job, so I don't want to be too hard on him. But look, here's the thing. I thought Biden's answers were often evasive, but he's a good politician. He's been doing this for a long time.
Oh, yeah.
He's able to evade, so his answers were not good. But Trump looked like a bully tonight.
Yeah.
That's what I took away from it. And that is not going to play well with independents. That is not going to play well with suburban women. That sort of constant jumping on the moderator, being argumentative. The thing about debate is when your opponent is putting himself in a hole, let him talk. And oftentimes Trump couldn't hold his tongue long enough to let Biden step on himself.
Yeah.
And he jumped on, like, let him talk. And then, so, yeah. As somebody who communicates for a living,
Yeah.
this was really, really hard to watch.
It was painful.
I wanted to jump
Yeah.
through the camera and say, could I have those 2 minutes, please? So that I could articulate a good answer.
Yeah.
And it was really, really tough.
All right. So the people. Wow.
Yeah.
Right.
Yep.
Now let's talk about the issues.
Yep.
Let's walk our way through. Like you just said, even I think it needs to be said. While there was a format that was supposed to be followed, it didn't seem to be tight.
It was all over. Yeah.
It
all
was
over.
definitely
Yeah.
a little loose.
Yeah.
Which made it rough even for us following along as we were trying to make an outline here based on the question. But the first question was regarding the Supreme Court.
Yeah.
So Wallace's question is, why
Right.
are you, he asked basically each person,
Yep.
why are you right in the argument that you make in
Right.
filling the Supreme Court vacancy?
Yep.
So Trump's position was, I think one of the big things he made, he said, I have the full 4 years of my term.
Right.
And I can use the full 4 years, not just up
Right.
to the election
Right.
and then wait, which is a little different than what the Republicans were fighting for before, which we understand why.
Yep.
Because it's all about wanting to get your
Yep.
way, so you make whatever argument to get that. And then Biden's, I think his main counterpoint was not as clear. I'll just say that. He had a
Right.
lot of points.
Right.
I wrote down a lot of points.
Right.
But he did not make his argument for the Supreme Court vacancy beyond just saying all these things are at stake without giving concrete details.
Yeah. So Trump was half right in his answer. The half right part was, we won the election. She's really qualified. Agree. What he didn't do was appeal to the Constitution. Mm-hmm. I'm like, oh, come on. I mean, right?
Yeah.
He has the constitutional right. He's obligated to do what he's doing right now, to nominate somebody, and he didn't go there. He made it, again, about himself and less about the Constitution, which was frustrating.
Yeah.
But yeah, the people had their say. They elected me for 4 full years, so I have the right to do this. That is the correct answer, but appeal to a higher authority, not to yourself.
Right.
But yes, I agree. Joe has no answer on this one. He really does, other than feelings, other than, well, let people pick, blah, blah, blah.
He brought up the Affordable Care Act.
Yeah, he went right there.
He brought up the Roe versus Wade. And that was actually a really interesting engagement because President Trump said it, referencing abortion, isn't on the ballot.
Right.
He made that statement. It's not on the ballot for the court, and you don't know her, meaning Barrett's, view on Roe versus Wade.
Right.
Which potentially could be troubling for those with conservative desires in terms of their voting. I mean, as Christians, we would like to see that be overturned.
Yeah, I was surprised that the president said that it's not up for discussion, because this terrible legislation. I mean, almost any scholar will tell you Roe versus Wade was a terrible outlier. It made no sense. It's not in any way connected to the Constitution. It should be looked at from a pure legal standpoint. So I was surprised he went there, for sure. Trump said several times, and I know he was trying to drive this point home, as they were talking about health care. Well, Joe, you've been in there for 47 years.
Yeah.
Why haven't you
What
done
have you
this
done?
before?
Yeah.
But I will say this. I do think health care is a major gaping hole for the Trump campaign. I don't think they've either it hasn't happened, there hasn't been a lot going on there, or they haven't communicated well about health care. it's been sort of muddled. And so I think if I were a Democrat, I would try to exploit that some more, for sure.
Yeah, it's not nearly as big of an issue, or hasn't been the last couple of years, as it was during the re-election for President Obama. That was a big deal.
I do think it was interesting in that section when Joe Biden said, the Democrat Party is me.
Yes.
That was forceful.
That was...
And I think that's a huge mistake on his part.
He said, the party is me.
Because you're going to have the people to his left, they're going to say, oh, really? So that was interesting.
Yeah.
I expect that comment to be repeated.
I mean, along with that, maybe we're jumping a little bit ahead, but was the connection with, hey, it's not the Green New Deal, it's the Biden deal. Starting to name things after himself. I'm like, okay.
And
wow.
There's a lot of people on the left propping Joe up right now who are going to want to dispute that. Maybe they'll try to do it privately, but they won't be happy.
Well, I would even say this, because we are giving commentary. Yeah. We know that it's not just the individual that's being elected to an office here when it comes to the president. The president actually writes very little, if anything, beyond his name.
Correct.
I mean, if we're being really honest. Yeah. So what we're voting for as an administration, we're voting for a political party, we're voting for the views that the party desires to pursue. We're not voting just for the individual that, I mean, President Trump or Vice President Biden, they're not going to write any legislation, personally. Yeah. And in terms of the details, they're just going to be apprised of it. Somebody else will write it for them and then show it to them and they'll say, okay, there we go, stamp of approval. So even in that, I think it's important to recognize neither of these guys are going to be the brainchilds of their material. It's going to be who's behind them, who supports them, who is doing the legwork for them, and what are they pursuing. And I think that's we've talked about that, very telling, at least on the Democratic side, when we look at who's supporting President or Vice President Biden.
And if they haven't, maybe they're joining in tonight for the first time, and you didn't hear us a few weeks ago when we talked about this. Yeah, we talked about parties and trajectories. Mm-hmm. Which party is taking our country in a direction that more aligns with our core values as believers? And we were really clear that we think the Republican Party has that better direction. Yeah. Regardless of what you thought of the two candidates tonight, down the line, that party is taking us in a direction which is more aligned with our values. Yeah. So
there were glaring holes that we saw in the Democratic platform, and we'd encourage you to go back and watch, because I've even heard Christians say, it's a lot of work to go through those things, and I think, yes, it is, but it's worthwhile. Yeah. Because you could be really lazy and just make statements on what people say, like in a debate. But that debate is not the substance of either party's administration for presidency. The substance is going to be the party platform and what they pursue. Right. So unless we do the hard work about actually discussing the very specific policies and goals of each party, then we really are just voting on who we like better. And there is no one to like. Yeah. And make that really clear. There's no one to like on this. I think that's fair.
You don't want to make it a personality contest.
No.
And we even talk in terms of performances, and that's silly, because the performance of a person in a debate has nothing to do with how they govern over the next 4 years. So anyway, let's keep going down the list.
Okay, let's keep going down the list. Yeah. We covered that one. One thing in that section, I wrote that it was very aggressive, because that was when Biden first told President Trump to shut up. It happened in the first section. He told him to shut up. He's getting under his skin. I think the one thing that was huge, and I'm not going to say the other way, was when Biden refused to answer about Supreme Court packing and ending the filibuster.
Yeah, notice that he did not answer
He absolutely refused.
And again, if I had been President Trump, I would not have let him slip away. I would have not been distracted, stay on it, ask the question.
Let him dig the hole, right? Yeah. In that. Yeah. Okay, so then the next question, or next line of questions, was based on this. Wallace related this to COVID. Yeah. He said, based on what you've said and done and said you would do, because obviously with Biden, it's just said you would do. He hasn't done anything, as he himself made clear. He's not a politician right now. Why should the American people trust you more than your opponent?
Yeah. Yeah. And so we heard the talking points from the Democratic side on this, blaming every single death on one man. Yeah. Which, again, that should be easily defended, but it wasn't well defended tonight. You cannot blame a once in a couple centuries pandemic on one man and how he responded to it.
Well, he didn't bring it here, first of all.
Right. So, and this affected the entire world and some countries, devastated countries. But you've got to be able to defend that. So he was able to pin 200,000 plus dead people on the president and say he had no plan. And then he hit him on that you weren't honest with the American people, and I didn't feel like the president defended himself well on that one, which I think he can, but he didn't.
He didn't defend himself. I mean, Biden really was trying to go for the heartstrings by saying there are people, you're waking up in the morning and you don't see your loved one across the table. Right. And there are heartbreaking situations. People have lost loved ones. And so we don't want to diminish the loss of life for any reason, whether it was because of COVID, whether, people are dying for normal causes right now too. And it's tragic when people lose loved ones. That is a tragic thing. But he went really for the heartstring on that one rather than trying to talk about policy. He said, you're not seeing your loved one because of this man. That's just, it's false. It's really poor debate, actually. Again, like you said, we would just love to take that on and say, all right, let me prove you wrong with your logical fallacy
but
here.
But it's a political trick, and it works. It works on most people. So notice how Joe Biden a couple times, 3 or 4
looked
times,
directly
straight
at the camera trying to talk to people.
It's an old trick. You're looking into the kitchen table of people. It does work.
Yeah.
And I think, again, President Trump didn't do that well. He was more about fighting with President Biden.
All about it.
Rather than looking at the camera and talking to the people. Listen, Trump, blamed the pandemic on China, rightfully so. That was good, but he didn't point to states. He didn't point to governors. He didn't point to because it's obviously not just him responsible for responding to the pandemic. He didn't spread that out as well as he could have. So I was a little frustrated with that. And then he went off on some point about you're not smart, Joe.
Yeah, that got really weird.
That was, really
Wallace
strange.
did ask a good follow-up to Biden about Harris saying that you can't trust public health officials, but you're supposed to trust them.
Right, I noticed that.
I didn't think that Biden answered that well. He said some can be trusted, but he didn't give a metric.
Right.
So it's like, okay, those with a political affiliation can be trusted, or those because they went to a certain school can be trusted, or, those kinds of things. Now, again, a biblical worldview tells us you can't trust anyone.
Right.
That's the biblical worldview, is that everyone's a liar. Everyone's without God in this world. Everyone, apart from Jesus Christ, offers nothing. I mean, really, there's only common grace that brings good things through unbelievers. So with that, we as believers understand that principle, but even from just a general standpoint, Biden didn't offer anything to stand on in terms of who you can trust. Then Wallace asked about the reluctance that Biden has to opening up the economy. And again, he just said, you just need a plan.
Right.
That didn't answer anything.
Right. And that was a very stark difference that I think if I was on Trump's side, I would want to exploit that, to be able to say,
specific.
Look, I'm for opening the country, you're for closing it down. Very stark choice. I would continue to hit on that for sure.
I mean, President Trump did talk about people being hurt by the economy being closed. And I think it was accurate with the things that he mentioned, specifically with small businesses, specifically loss of jobs in that sector across the nation. And we're talking about how people are being home and being alone.
Yeah, it
is really hard.
I thought that was really an important point. And look, again, biblically speaking, we shouldn't be living our lives in fear. We should be living our lives with a healthy respect for the fact that we can all get sick by living in this world, but not in fear. And so, yes, the depression and the drug and the alcohol use has ramped up. And that shouldn't be discounted, but it is being discounted by the left. Yeah. But that's a very real thing. So, again, from a biblical standpoint, in terms of shutting it down or opening it up, I think the most sense, from where we stand would be, we need to not live in fear. We need to open it up and try to be as safe as we can. Yeah.
The mask thing was a little entertaining. I'm not gonna avoid that one. President Trump said he'd be okay, is okay wearing masks when he feels necessary. And Biden says, basically, I'm not paraphrasing him. He said, you wear masks to save lives. Right. Is what he said. Right. And so in that, we know what his view is on that issue. But then when he said that, then President Trump came back and said, what about Pelosi? And then we could say, what about Feinstein, recently? Or
what about all the peaceful protesters that are out in the streets?
There's a lot of questions, right?
But he didn't bring that one up. See, that would have been a really good time. I was like, come on.
And things come in threes. Yeah. That's the way you do it, by the way, in terms of good speeches.
How about all those protesters out there? That's probably contributing to things as well. So, some missed opportunities for sure.
Yeah. That whole section. Yeah. it was really awkward because Biden blamed President Trump for everything, like you said, regarding COVID. But he had no hard evidence that his plan would be better because he had no plan.
Well, that's
that he
what
put forward.
Again, I would, if I had been Chris Wallace, I would have said, okay, Joe, specifically, what is your plan that's different than what President Trump is doing? But he didn't ask the question, which was unfortunate.
He just kept saying, you need a plan, you need a plan.
Right.
Give a plan.
What's the plan? Right.
Yeah.
How are you going to do better?
But he has to wait
Other than just shut everything down, which is not a good plan.
Yeah, he has to wait for his little team to come up with the plan that is different enough that they can say, we're doing this so much better. Because that's the game. Because it's just little teams working on these things. That section, I noted that Trump was very condescending to Biden throughout this and, with the schooling and all of that. And said he could never do what Trump did in this regard. That's kind of how that section finished.
I will say that President Trump is correct when he was laying down the China cutting off travel from China. There were still many Democrats that were out there saying, no, everything's going to be okay, Pelosi included, Schumer included, right, these guys, and Biden, who called him xenophobic for shutting down travel to China. So I think the president has that right. Could he have done more? That's history books will let us know. Let's go to the economy.
Yeah, the economy. So this was interesting.
Yeah.
So Wallace said the economy is recovering, and there's this idea of either a V shape or a K shape. And what does that mean for the American people?
I was trying to picture a K shape. I couldn't.
Yeah, I mean, I have a K here, and I'm like,
Wait, what?
Maybe up, down, and down, up. Anyways, so it went to Trump first, and he said very clearly, shutting down's hurting people, that if Biden wins, he's going to destroy the country.
Right.
And people want schools open. That was kind of some of his big points.
And I brought back football.
Ohio's very thankful.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's a nice little night. Ohio's a swing state, right? Ohio State fans, right? Yeah.
Yeah. So then Biden went with his points. I mean, you could tell he was well rehearsed. He talked about millionaires and billionaires aren't affected. And that's what he talked about with the K shape. Yeah. The poor are affected negatively, the rich are affected positively. Yeah. I don't know if there's any hard evidence necessarily for that. That's a tough one. We could talk economy and jobs, but numbers are so hard.
I know, right?
Numbers are so hard. Just anyways, I don't want to get into that because we talk stats and it gets crazy.
Well, and then Biden brought up Trump's taxes, which was he was looking for that moment to slide that in there.
Yeah, real quick before we go to the chat, because Wallace asked about that one too. But I just want to make one point. Or a couple points real quick. Yeah. Biden talked about frontline workers losing jobs.
Right.
And again, numbers are important. Yeah. And what kinds of frontline workers and why, even because there are also debates as to why certain hospitals have been limiting jobs when there's a pandemic.
Yeah.
There's a great question there, right? There's politics behind that in various regards. And then he said schools require a lot of money to safely open.
Yep.
And they, meaning the current administration, have done nothing to help small businesses. That was patently false.
Yeah, that is false.
That one right there, just on the nose, was like, no. I mean, there were a lot of people who took advantage. We found there's fraud, even with some of the COVID relief. But there's a lot of businesses that were really helped. A lot of businesses were able to stay alive because of the COVID relief. So that section was weird.
Yeah, it was weird.
But then Wallace asked Trump about the $750 federal income tax. Yeah. And then Trump said he's paid millions in income taxes. Right. And we're just waiting for those things. I think it was really interesting and helpful, and maybe you might not think it's helpful to hear politicians argue, but Trump said, I wasn't stupid, and I didn't want to pay a lot of tax.
Right.
When you think about it, who wants to pay a lot of tax?
Right.
Like,
correct.
Do you want to? I don't want to pay a lot of tax. Do you want to?
We all try to not evade tax, but avoid tax legally. And that's the point Trump was trying to make. I don't think he made it well.
No.
But that's the point he's trying to make.
Yeah.
Have you seen the picture of Trump's tax return? It's thousands of pages. Yeah. It is very complicated. And on purpose, right.
Yeah.
Look, let me just look at the camera right now. The tax code in this country is terrible.
It's ridiculous.
It's a mess, and it needs to be simplified. But you cannot blame someone like Donald Trump for trying to use the tax laws that the Obama administration is also responsible for.
Every celebrity that supporting president or vice president nominee, or it's hard because they have their titles and we're trying to be respectful, right? So President Trump, Vice President Biden. Yeah. But every every celebrity, every rich person that is from Hollywood and in sports, they are using the same tools,
The same loopholes.
the same loopholes
Yep.
to go through it. So before anyone thinks that there's a righteous and an unrighteous, no, it is part of the American economic system that when you have money, you can pay people to make sure you keep more of your money.
Yeah. And by the way, Joe Biden did the same thing.
And Joe Biden
he's
and Hunter?
and he's a millionaire.
Hunter's doing.
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah.
yeah,
They all do
everyone's
it.
doing the same thing.
Yeah.
So that needs to be said. There's no he's doing this and no, everyone else is doing it the right way.
Right.
No, everyone.
Right.
Everyone's corrupt, right?
And yet, in the middle of this, Joe wants to raise taxes,
Yeah.
and that's a huge difference as well. So President Trump wants to continue to cut taxes wherever possible. Joe wants to raise taxes. And President Trump is absolutely correct. When an economy is recovering, is the worst time to raise taxes. It is
Yeah.
not the time. You want to wait till there's stability in the economy. You want to wait till it's all the way open and we've stabilized. Then we could look at what's going on.
We've talked about this for length.
Yeah.
President Trump is a businessman,
Right.
and he does understand business.
Right.
Whether we like him as a person,
Right.
that's been the thing we constantly talk about. But as a businessman, I mean, he started to go into teacher mode there and talking about the stocks,
Yeah.
the stock market, and historically. And Biden has no reference
no.
for how the stock market works, potentially
No.
even, or how job creation in that sector.
He's never been a business owner.
Never been a business
So,
guy.
yeah.
So that realm is
Right.
so foreign to him.
Right.
He was talking about the Green New Deal creating jobs.
Yeah.
So limiting the
Yeah.
the economy and production of certain things to only some things is going to create jobs. Anyways.
You also noted Joe brought up manufacturing, which is a huge mistake.
Yeah.
Because the Obama administration was abominable on manufacturing, but he wants to try to
that
connect
would have
with,
been a good one if he would
Thank you
have
very
used
much.
that tonight. Yeah.
He wants to try to connect with the Scranton roots. Have you noticed
Yeah.
that? He said it several times. Manufacturing, but
Which I just kept thinking of The Office.
They were They were terrible at manufacturing, and Trump has brought some of that back. And
Yeah.
so that was a mistake on Biden's part.
Yeah,
to go down that
and it
road.
was also unfortunate that President Trump didn't capitalize
Yep,
on that.
right,
The second
right.
that he went there and tried to say that the economy was
Right.
tanking before COVID, it was
Right.
like, whoa, hold
Right.
up. No, the economy tanked with COVID.
Yes. Yeah. Well, that's
Yeah.
the thing, and most people should know that the
Yeah.
the economy was humming
Yeah.
like I've never seen in my lifetime, and COVID wrecked it. I mean, we should all be honest about that, but honesty is hard to come by.
It's rough. And when you want to blame and you have a target right in front of you,
Yep.
you take the easy shot.
So can we
right?
talk real quick about Hunter Biden, because this is where Donald Trump injected Hunter. You knew that was
Yeah.
coming, and this whole $3.5 million from the wife of the mayor of Moscow, and Joe said it had been debunked. It's not been debunked. There's an actual wire transfer that happened.
Yeah.
And so the question that
This
was
is
coming
another
out,
in the long line, too.
Right.
This is not even the first
the
thing.
question coming out on Twitter is, can we see Hunter? Can we get Hunter's income taxes? Did he pay income tax on that money? That would
Yeah.
be a fascinating thing to look at.
Well, and the question with that is the whole idea of nepotism and
Yes.
is Hunter getting or has he received benefits to his father being in the position that he's in?
and
That's
so-
the question. It's not
yes,
a question
they should
of
know that,
can
yes.
you as a business person get money from other nations?
Right.
You can.
Right.
The question is, did he unfairly, and that was where Trump went at the end, which
Yeah.
was untasteful, talking about drug addiction and other things.
Yeah.
But those are real things.
Yeah.
And just wrestling with, so this guy who's been recovering drug addict is then given these
Yeah.
millions of dollars, and
Yeah.
how does that all happen?
Yeah. Yeah. It's very, very shady.
Very
and
murky.
the only reason he got this money, we know, is because his last name is Biden. I mean, that's just,
It'd be hard to prove otherwise.
yes.
It'd be very hard.
But yes, I don't think the president did a good job of doing that in a way that was where he could make his point without, again, seeming like a bully.
Right.
And Joe went to, pulled out Bo's name. Of course, Bo's passed away, which is a sad story. And Trump said, I don't know, Bo, I want to talk about Hunter. Again, that's not going to play with certain elements in our country that don't want to hear family brought into it. And again, the bullying tactics are rough. So
Yeah. When Biden turned it, he said
Yep.
it's all been discredited regarding Hunter,
it's not true.
which is not true.
it's
Yeah,
not
but
true.
he said it's all been discredited, been
Yeah.
discredited. But then he turned it and he said it's all about you. And this is one of the
Yeah.
other moments that he turned
Yep.
to the camera and said it's all about you,
That's right.
the American people.
Yeah.
That's
It's a good deflection technique.
where he turned it. And
Yeah.
I mean, he's right. right? I mean, the whole thing is who's voting,
right?
You know,
right?
We are.
Right.
We're the American people.
It really shouldn't be about you and I and who's going to win this debate. It should be about the people,
right?
So
what are you going to do for them?
To the people,
to all those who want to write down the what are we going to call it, the no Sanchez ticket or whatever.
Yeah.
Anyways,
they can write us in, can't they?
You're right. That'd be ridiculous. Don't waste your vote.
Okay. All right.
All that to say, that was an unruly end of the segment. Wallace really tried to reestablish rules for the debate there, and aim for fewer interruptions, and that was really intense.
All right. It's 8:20, and we're on the race and violence thing, and we've talked a lot in the underground about race issues, so we want to definitely get into this. So thoughts? Boy, this was crazy too.
It was hard to follow, to be honest, because there was so much blaming and digging into history, personal history, what you've said, what and all these things. There are a couple of things I think we can cling to that were said here. So Wallace did ask a follow-up regarding Biden referencing the Breonna Taylor case, and whether there is differences in equality in this country. And so Joe Biden says, yes, there's systemic racism. There's mostly good cops, but some bad apples. Peaceful protests are okay, but never violence. Now,
he tried to walk a balanced line.
I think one of the first times he's been in all of those levels as clear as that.
Yes.
So for him, I think that was the clearest he's been overall.
I agree.
Trump then was asked about critical race theory in the book. White fragility, and Trump says, hey, there's racist thinking here, teaching people to hate our country. We have to go back to core values. And then it kind of erupted from there because Biden said people need to be aware of insensitivities for others, and that Trump and his friends look down on others like himself, an Irish Catholic, which I thought was an interesting, how do you connect? Anyways.
Can I real quickly, the issue on Charlottesville, because it came up. And Chris Wallace.
There's mighty fine people on both sides.
I think Chris Wallace did everybody a disservice by bringing that up, because that whole story has been debunked completely, because the Charlottesville thing, if you don't recall, the guys with the tiki torches, a bunch of knuckleheads, about 75 of them. There was Antifa on the other side. They got into a big brawl. A woman was killed by a car. It was absolute chaos. When Trump said very fine people on both sides, he was not even talking about that. He was talking about the reason for this gathering in Charlottesville was a statue. Should it come down or stay up? He meant, and he said very clearly, there's very fine people on both sides of that argument, statue issue. And then he went on to say, he literally said, I'm not talking about the white supremacists. So, but that thing continues to have legs, which is really frustrating.
And I know people that when it happened, that was their interpretation of what he said, and to this day will still hold to that.
Right.
Which is hard because I remember it, and I didn't hear that even back then. But we hear what we hear, right?
But this is the president's problem in failing to articulate well.
And being really clear.
And being very clear.
And
I thought Biden hit him when he talked about Trump being a divider, not a uniter. He talked about the dog whistles and the races and all that. Again, I'm not saying that's true. I'm just saying he hit him pretty hard on that. And then Trump hit him back on the Law and Order and the 94 crime bill.
I was glad that Wallace asked Biden if he's called Democratic governors.
Yes, that was interesting.
To
Good
step
question.
in and stop violence. And I thought it was very shameful, my opinion, that Biden said, well, I don't hold public office.
Right.
So
when he just said the Democratic Party is me.
Yes. I mean, both sides of your mouth much, that's really rough. And even, former President Obama has had multiple videos that he's put out since, over the last several years, talking about what he wants to see in America, what he wants to see with the Democratic Party, all these things. And he'll still continue to engage because he held an office. And he recognizes that position.
You're an influencer. Right.
So for Biden to say, as a career politician, 47, almost 50 years of being a politician, to say, well, I'm not holding public office right now, so I'm not going to call anyone, it to me is shameful. That's an embarrassing thing about being a politician. You make your living doing it, and you're not going to be a uniter, even when you're calling out the other guy for being a divider?
And this has been rampant in the Democratic Party. They have not been calling out the violence. They've been quiet. Like, they're not...
They'll take their moments like tonight.
Right. They're not going to support it, but they're not going to condemn it either. They're just being quiet and letting that, because because that type of anarchy in the streets helps their cause. So it's unfortunate. By the way, I thought the question about reimagining policing was a good question for Biden, and I think he had no answer for that.
Yeah.
He was all over the place on that answer.
Because he said he's opposed to defunding the police, but then he wants psychologists and psychiatrists. I'm not sure he understands the difference.
Right.
And I don't mean to be disrespectful in that. I mean to be honest.
Right.
There is a huge difference. One comes with an MD, the other doesn't. One can give you drugs, the other cannot. I mean, that's the big difference between the two. And we want to talk more about that. Maybe we take an underground, we talk more biblical counseling, why all these things. But in that realm, there is a huge difference between bringing a psychologist with you, bringing a psychiatrist, even just in implications with that. You know, you bring a doctor with you for some. I mean, anyways.
As crime is going up, to talk about defunding police right now is just a mistake on the left's part. And so I thought Trump hit him hard on law and order. Again, could have done it, I think, more gently, but he hit him hard on that. So
then there was a question, do you condemn, right? That's what he's trying to do. I want you to condemn right now. And this is a debate tactic when you can get somebody to say something, even if what they say is what everyone wants to agree upon, if you get them to say it, you hold the power. Yeah. That's the thing. Like if Jeff and I are arguing and I say, will you just agree that? And I get Jeff to yield in that, then I won, even if we were saying the same thing the whole time. That's just a debate tactic. So Biden tries to run for that one, right? To say, will you disagree? And Trump does initially, right? He says, regarding the white supremacy, he's like, what do you want me to say? Who do you want me to condemn? He says, and then he turned it. And the argument just went from there because he turned it and said, but it's the other side, it's Antifa, it's these other things.
This was so easy to win on, okay? I'll play the part of Donald Trump.
Sure.
You can be Chris Wallace. Will you denounce white supremacy?
Will you denounce white supremacy?
Absolutely. Now, Joe, will you denounce Antifa?
Right. There's a way to win back.
Absolutely. You say it flat out, and then you turn to Joe and say, will you do the same thing? Mm-hmm. I again want to jump into the camera and say, let me take the podium, please.
Yeah, the neither guy is really that skilled in debating is the thing. They're just, that's not how they made their money. I'll be honest. Neither of them made their money that way. Okay. Anyways, they both hit hard on personal history. So then they get to their fifth one. Why should voters elect you over your opponent regarding the record that each one had?
I think Chris just made that up on the fly because that was not one of the categories. And he just out of nowhere. So why should they vote for you, right?
Yeah, well, I mean, they talked about the record is, I think, what was one of the categories. I think he loosely tried to connect this one to that. But, Trump said there's never been an administration accomplishing more than this. And he referenced all the judicial openings that were left by the previous administration and then how many he's appointed. So he actually talked about, here's what I've done to a degree. Not all the things, but some of them.
And you know what? He does have a good track record of getting things done. He's a doer. The guy is not a politician. He has gotten a lot done. The challenge for him and the reason why he's behind in the polls right now is he's done all those things, but it's all the other stuff, the chaos and the tweeting,
the controversy and the
controversy and had he been able to restrain himself more over the last 3 years, I think this would have been a slam dunk for him. But I think people are exhausted. Yeah,
they're tired of listening to these things. I mean, and Biden went for the typical debate. We've become weaker and sicker and poorer and more divided. He used. And then he went through each one. I mean, he was well studied in what he wanted to convey, the information that he wanted to come across.
Did you see how passionate he got in this section when he talked about his son fighting in Iraq?
Very passionate.
Got very passionate. I thought that was a good moment for him because that wins hearts. I don't know how true it is, but it wins hearts when you talk about your son who fought in Iraq.
Well, and he tried to use it as my son's a hero. You said that they're losers. Bringing that.
And then Trump said, but Hunter got thrown out of the military for drug use and all that. And I was like, it
got wild.
That was not, because that would have been a moment to say, you know what, I honor Bo's service. You know what, I honor his service. Good for him. And I'm really sorry for your loss. At that moment, be empathetic and then say, but,
you can take all the air out of his balloon by doing that.
And then turn the conversation back to something you want to go. But in that moment, it's not the moment to take on that fight.
Mm-hmm. I thought it was interesting, again, here, kind of saw it throughout the night, but Wallace called out Trump for interrupting, and he really was focused on Trump's interruptions. Now, Trump did interrupt an awful lot. There's no two ways about it. But he was very focused on Trump's interruptions, and seemed to laugh and joke with Biden about it.
He was much more upset with Trump,
which
no
was
question.
really unfortunate.
Yep.
And be honest, right? If you're an alpha male, I know
Yeah.
we don't like to talk about things in these constructs, but if you're an alpha male, it doesn't rile you up to have somebody else challenge you.
Right.
At least it shouldn't.
Right.
When you're not,
Right.
when you're a reporter who's a little squishy,
Yep.
no offense,
Yep.
but also offense.
Yep.
When you're a little squishy, you're going to have a hard time dealing with guys that are strong-willed.
Yep.
And
Yep.
this guy, Wallace, was not
Yeah.
strong-willed.
I think part of it for him is coming from Fox News. He probably wanted to lean towards the Democrat, so in order to try to
Make it seem like he's not leaning one
Yeah.
way.
He's always been. I watch him a lot. He's always been harder on Republicans than Democrats. So
Yeah. I mean, we could even talk about that. Maybe there's a mute button next time.
yeah, that
I mean,
exactly.
wouldn't that
Right.
just solve everything?
That would have been great.
Just say, hey,
Yeah.
you got your time
Yep.
and your microphone's muted. The
Yep.
end.
Yep.
My goodness.
Yep.
But no one wants to think about being a problem solver. Then we wouldn't be America, right? We'd just be
Okay, we
some
got
other
like
place.
a couple
Okay.
minutes. So
Yeah.
climate change.
Yep.
Ugh, I hate the climate change discussion because it goes nowhere.
It goes nowhere.
Because it just isn't. You just can't pin it down. Like, yeah.
We are so ignorant still. As
Yeah.
much as we laud our science,
Yeah.
we are so ignorant still
Yeah.
about how the world works,
Yeah.
about how climate works,
Yeah.
about how population control, vegetation, everything.
Yeah.
We're so ignorant still. We think that we know so much. We think that we're
Right.
enthroned on high, if we're honest, right?
Yeah.
Biblical perspective, we think we're enthroned on high.
Yeah.
We are just so woefully ignorant when it comes to these things. Now, that doesn't mean we shouldn't be good stewards.
Correct.
And we've talked
We've
about
talked
that.
about it, right.
Be
Right.
good stewards
Right.
of everything. So we
Right.
shouldn't try to actively destroy
Right.
the world that we have. God
Right.
has told us to be good stewards
Right.
of creation. This goes back to the creation of Adam in the garden. That being said, the whole issues and trying to get people to line up somewhere, and Wallace kept saying, do you agree with the science? Do you agree with the science? What science, bro?
Right. Because obviously he is a climate change guy.
Obviously. I just want
Right.
to ask that,
Right.
what science?
Right.
And I say bro because I'm
Yeah.
like, come on now.
I know.
Show a hard fact.
Yeah.
Show something that was without dispute.
Yeah.
You can't.
There's
no one can.
I'll make a book recommendation real quick because I've ordered it. It's a book called Apocalypse Never by a guy named Mike Schellenberger, who's a brilliant climate scientist and sees through a lot of the nonsense that's happening right now, because it is. We just don't know. And we know this biblically. Who's sovereign?
Who knows the mind of the Lord? I mean,
Right.
read the book of Job and the questions that God asked Job at the
Like,
end.
we're going to fix the
Yeah.
climate. We're going to do it.
Who stores up the rain in the heavens?
Right,
Like,
right.
not
Come on.
us.
Come on
right?
now.
And nor can
Come
we
on.
influence it. So yeah, that's hard. So I thought what was really interesting in this
Yeah.
section was the discussion on the Green New Deal and Biden saying that he supported it, then he didn't support it, then
Right.
he did. I
That's
mean,
not
it was,
my deal. That's not
it was
my
back
deal.
and forth,
Yeah,
and then he said,
yeah.
"It's the Biden deal. It's not the
Yeah.
Green New Deal."
Yeah.
Well, what deal, Joe?
Yeah.
What deal?
Well, and he talked
It's
about
so hard.
retrofitting buildings and
Oh,
electric
man.
cars, and basically building this idea of building a green economy is a disaster.
Yeah.
It's a disaster for our country.
It's
And so
we talk about the tax code being complicated.
Yeah.
Imagine how complicated our lives would be. We've already dealt with it here in California, dealing with everything from straws
Yep.
and the containers that we drink out of and all those things,
Yeah.
which is not necessarily bad to have discussions,
Yeah.
but with all the laws that come down
Yeah.
and what you're able to do. I mean, we talked about this when we were trying to get a building for the church several years ago, and all the environmental tests that we had to do
Yep.
for an already existing building that had everything handled.
right.
It was ridiculous.
Right.
The level of government oversight
Yeah.
onto these things without real facts.
Yeah.
That's the hardest part. Anyway, okay,
It's
you
crazy.
can talk to me another time. You can tell I have personal feelings about this.
Yeah.
That's great. Last one,
Yep.
the integrity of the election, right? The
Yeah.
question was, how confident can we be
Right.
that this will be a fair election? How can you reassure people that the next president will be the legitimate president?
Right. Yep. And this is where Biden, I thought, he parroted the line that's out there all the time. This man can't stay in power. We can't have 4 more years of lies, blah, blah, blah. And this was Trump's chance to bring out the coup. And there was a whole bunch of evidence that came out today that
Which he did reference at one
he
point.
did reference
but
briefly.
Yeah.
Again, he couldn't articulate it, but more evidence came out today. Documents were declassified. More is coming, I believe, in the coming weeks, and we're going to find out that there have been dark forces at work in trying to cause the Trump administration
We talked about the
a
handoff.
great headache.
There was no
Yes.
handoff.
Yeah,
right.
and that was smart. Again, that was the point to make. There's been no transitional power because the 2016 Democratic Party has never let it go. They just haven't. And I think I think before the election we're going to find out more.
Yeah.
So
what we have to look forward to, there's going to be
Right.
the vice presidential debate
and more debates
and a couple more
of these.
presidential
Yeah.
debates
Yeah.
as well.
By the way, the
coming up.
mail-in, we should just briefly mention the mail-in ballots.
Yeah.
I do think it's a disaster.
Yeah, in terms of the unsolicited, I think that was a good point to make.
Yeah,
There's a
think,
difference between being an absentee voter, like
Yeah.
registered
Yeah, right.
absentee
Right.
voter where you're supposed to get a ballot
Right.
versus just ballots going out
Yeah.
just to everybody.
Trump prophetic. This is not going to end well. I'm not a prophet either, but I'll make a prediction here that this is not going to end well. That we will not know who the president
It's
is.
not going to be election day. It's going to
for
be election
weeks.
potentially months.
And it's going to be, votes are going to be lost and they're going to be found and it will end up in the courts. I believe the courts are going to decide this. Just like Bush and Gore back in the day. I believe that. And neither side is going to be satisfied. And neither side is going to, whoever loses will not recognize the other. And our country will be more divided than ever.
Well, the one thing Biden tried to make clear tonight
Yeah.
compared to Hillary several years ago
Yeah.
is that he would accept the result. He
Yeah.
said that multiple
Yep.
times.
Yep.
Now time will tell.
Yep.
Whatever the result is, time
Exactly.
will tell on
Exactly.
that. So
Exactly.
wow, what
Okay,
a night.
Summary. It's 8:34, so
Yep.
we got to wrap up. Summary.
We trust the Lord.
That's it. Again,
He's over the flood. He's over the cedars of Lebanon.
Yeah.
He's over
Yep.
the deer in the wilderness.
Yep.
The Lord is sovereign above all.
Agreed. And if you can take out the personalities, what you saw tonight, the bullying, the disrespect from Biden,
Poor behavior all around.
poor, just really poor. Even the moderator, the whole
Yeah.
thing. Take it away. Look at the party platforms. Look at policy.
Look
at
what they're pursuing.
Look at the direction of the two parties. What is best for our culture? What is best for freedom for us as Christians to continue to worship? The choice is pretty obvious. And pray that the election. I mean, obviously God's sovereign. Whoever wins is going to be God put them in power.
Yeah,
But we can pray to a positive end in that.
absolutely.
Cool.
It's a great encouragement. All right, folks. Well, we will not be here next week.
Yeah,
We're taking a week off.
Taking a week off.
So you'll see us the following week.
Yep.
Also, live worship will not be happening this weekend, so tune in Sunday morning.
Sunday morning.
We're going to
from
be
here.
in John chapter 1.
Right. Verses 15 to 18.
We're taking on a few more
four
verses.
more verses.
A few
We're going
more
to end
verses.
the prologue, though. This is good. We're ending the prologue, and it'll be good.
It'll be good.
So
well,
tune
looking
in.
forward to that.
Yep.
And we have Sermon Den Friday night.
Sermon Den Friday night.
So
Exactly.
there'll be some good questions there.
Absolutely. So get involved. And we have member meetings Sunday night.
And we have member meetings
and
Sunday
communion
night.
Sunday
Yeah.
night.
So
make it a priority.
again, if you're interested in membership, you're watching, you're part of our local community here, and you want to know more, come talk to one of our elders
Yep.
about what membership looks like.
Yep.
We look forward to seeing you guys back here at the studio
Yep.
in 2 weeks.
Sounds good.
All right.
All right, guys.
Have a great week.
Love
God
you
bless.
guys.